Welcome to the Solve For Earth.AI Podcast, your gateway to the groundbreaking world of artificial intelligence solutions for the planet's most urgent challenges. From climate action to equity, sustainability, and beyond, we explore how AI is transforming ideas into impact. Whether you're ready to kickstart your passion project or want to stay ahead on global solutions, we've got you covered. Tune in, get inspired, and be part of the change. Listen, comment, and share because together we can solve for Earth.
When I think about the UN, AI isn't exactly the first thing that comes to mind.
Right.
But UN Women, they're really shaking things up, right? Using AI in some really unexpected ways, all to tackle this huge challenge of gender inequality.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you really think about it. I mean, they're really embracing these cutting edge technologies, not just as like a side project, but as like a core strategy for global impact.
It's systemic change.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about like small scale initiatives here.
Right.
This is, for example, their Action Coalition for Technology and Innovation for Gender Equality.
Yeah.
Launched back in 2021. Brought together this incredible mix of players, governments, we've got tech giants like Microsoft, grassroots organizations. I mean, everyone's coming together and they're all united by this vision of using tech to empower women and girls.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really crucial point. It's not just about using technology,
right,
but it's about like who is shaping that technology, whose voices are we hearing?
Yeah.
And the Action Coalition recognizes, right, that if we want to create a more equitable future, we need to make sure that women are like actively involved in designing and developing those technologies that are going to shape that future.
So it's about making sure that from the ground up, this technology is being developed with everyone in mind, not just a select few.
Exactly.
And one of the things I found really fascinating in researching this was this idea of feminist technology, which it sounds like something from a sci-fi novel, but the more I thought about it, the more it kind of makes sense. Can you unpack that a little for us? What does that even mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a term that sparks a lot of curiosity, right? But essentially, it's about moving beyond just creating products for women and instead really like fundamentally integrating these gender considerations into every single stage of the technology development process.
Yeah.
So imagine like algorithms, right? Designed with a deep understanding of the unique challenges that women face, or digital platforms that are, intentionally built to promote inclusivity and safety, rather than kind of like replicating and amplifying those existing inequalities that we see.
So it's about changing the very DNA of technology, right? Making it work for everyone, not just kind of repeating the same old biases we see in the offline world.
100%, yeah. Yeah, it's about fundamentally changing the way we think about and approach technology design, and one of the ways that they're working towards this is really by advocating for more women in tech, right? And especially in fields like AI.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine a world where like the people developing these algorithms that are increasingly like powering our lives actually reflect the diversity of the people that those algorithms are impacting.
Yeah, it's a powerful vision.
Yeah.
And it's not just a vision, they're backing it up. I was blown away by how much funding they've managed to secure for these initiatives. We're talking billions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
Committed to building this more inclusive tech ecosystem.
Yeah, it's really an unprecedented level of investment, and I think it shows how seriously these stakeholders are taking this issue.
Yeah.
It's not just lip service, right? They're putting their money where their mouth is.
Right, they're walking the walk.
Exactly, and this funding is being used to support everything from research and development to education and training programs, all with the goal of really closing that gender gap in tech and making sure that women have that equal seat at the table.
It's like they're trying to reprogram the system from the inside out, which is, it's incredibly ambitious.
Hugely ambitious.
But, all this focus on building a more equitable future through technology, it does kind of make you wonder about, the potential downsides.
Yeah.
Are there concerns about AI being used in ways that could actually harm women or even reinforce those existing inequalities we're talking about?
Yeah, no, that's That's a really, really important question.
Right.
And it's one that UN Women is very, very aware of, right? I mean, they understand that technology is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad, right? So they're equally focused on really trying to address those potential risks of AI and in particular, the risk of amplifying those biases that we're talking about.
Right. Because we've seen how algorithms can, perpetuate harmful stereotypes, even when they're designed with good intentions in the beginning.
Exactly. If the data that's being used to train these systems is flawed or incomplete, then the AI that comes out of that is going to reflect those flaws. So that's why UN Women is really pushing to make sure that data collection and analysis is conducted through a gender lens, right? Really taking into account those unique experiences and challenges faced by women and girls.
So it's not just about the algorithms, right? It's about the data itself.
Data is fundamental.
Yeah, making sure it's representative and inclusive from the very beginning.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like building a house, right? If the foundation's shaky, it doesn't matter how fancy the architecture is on top.
Exactly, yeah.
It's going to fall apart.
And that kind of brings us to another area where UN Women is doing some really interesting work, which is leveraging AI to address online violence against women, which unfortunately is a growing problem in our digital world.
Yeah, it's a really critical issue, and it's one that's unfortunately become more urgent, right? I mean, we're seeing this kind of disturbing rise in online harassment.
Yeah.
Cyberbullying, disinformation campaigns that are targeting women, often with the aim of silencing their voices or discouraging their participation in public life.
It's like this stark reminder that, the internet can be, an amazing tool, but it can also be a weapon.
Right.
And women are often the target of that.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword for sure.
And so that's where UN Women's work on cybersecurity and peace building comes in.
Yeah.
They're recognizing that online violence, it's not just a tech issue, right? It's a human rights issue.
It's just human
with real-world consequences.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's something that's often overlooked, right? People think, oh, it's just online. It's not a big deal.
But it has real impact.
It has real-world consequences, absolutely.
So how are they using AI to combat this? Are we talking about some sort of super sophisticated algorithm that can identify and block hate speech like that?
I wish it were that simple.
Right.
It's a really complex challenge, and there's no magic bullet solution, right? But UN Women is exploring a bunch of different innovative approaches. For instance, they're partnering with researchers and tech companies to develop AI tools that can help, identify and track online threats, analyze patterns of abuse, and even predict potential outbreaks of violence.
Wow, that's pretty cutting edge.
That's incredible, especially in places like conflict zones. Yeah.
Where online platforms are being used to incite violence.
Absolutely.
And spread disinformation.
Yeah, it's really about understanding how these harmful narratives spread online.
Right.
So we can come up with more effective ways to counter them, right? To create these safer online spaces for women.
It's like building a digital immune system.
Yeah, I like that.
To help protect, women from these online threats and create this more peaceful and inclusive digital world.
Yeah, a digital immune system. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about identifying those warning signs early on and understanding the patterns so we can actually intervene effectively.
So it's not just about reacting to online violence after it's already happened, but actually trying to get ahead of it.
Exactly. It's about prevention.
Prevention, yeah.
And one of the ways they're doing this is through this really, really interesting research project in Southeast Asia.
Oh.
They're looking specifically at how AI can be used to actually implement this thing called the Women, Peace, and Security Agenda.
Okay.
Focusing on the role that online platforms play in conflict and peace building.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so they're partnering with this group, the United Nations University Institute in Macau.
Okay.
To analyze how AI can help us, really understand and then address these online threats to women, specifically in the context of peace and security.
Yeah.
So we're talking, disinformation campaigns, hate speech, even cyberbullying, harassment, all these things that can actually escalate into real-world conflicts.
It's amazing to me how something, as complex as an algorithm could actually have a real-world impact on something as tangible as peace and security.
It really speaks to how interconnected our digital and physical worlds are becoming.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about these really complex issues of conflict.
Wow.
And the cool thing is, they're actually planning to release a whole report on this in May 2024.
Oh, wow.
So we'll have some concrete insights to dig into pretty soon.
I'm adding that to my reading list.
Good.
It makes you wonder, in what other unexpected ways is UN Women finding to leverage AI, for this kind of real world impact?
Well, one really, really interesting example that highlights their commitment to meeting people where they are is it's called Ondi.
Ondi. That sounds more like a secret agent or something
That does have a nice ring to it.
than like an AI program.
Right. It's catchy.
Yeah.
But Ondi is actually a chatbot.
A chatbot. That seems, I don't know, almost surprisingly low tech for an organization like UN Women.
Yeah.
What does this chatbot actually do?
Don't let the simplicity fool you.
Okay.
This chatbot is actually on the front lines of a very, very critical issue.
Okay.
Ondi is designed to help victims of domestic violence in Trinidad and Tobago.
Wow.
So it's available 24/7, providing, immediate information, resources, and even connecting people to essential services, like right there, right when they need it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Especially in those situations where, someone might be in danger and can't, safely reach out for help.
Exactly. UN Women recognize that in many cases, technology is the safest and most accessible way for victims to reach out,
Yeah.
So they're piloting this project with a local charity there called the Coalition Against Domestic Violence.
It sounds like they're really, really thinking about the human element here.
Yeah.
Using technology, not just because it's, cutting edge or cool,
Right.
but because it can actually make a real difference in people's lives.
Yeah, it's about impact.
Yeah.
It's about making a tangible difference.
Yeah, in a very, very direct and immediate way.
Absolutely. And while Ondi is still, in its early stages, I think the potential here is enormous, right? Imagine if this model could be replicated in other regions or for other really, critical social services.
It's like having a virtual advocate available to anyone, anywhere.
Exactly.
At any time.
It's about augmenting human support. It's not about replacing it.
Right.
But especially in situations like domestic violence, where access to information and support can literally be, a matter of life or death.
Yeah.
Having a tool like Ondi can be absolutely critical.
It really highlights how important it is to think about the ethics of AI.
Oh, hugely important.
Especially when we're talking about, something as sensitive as providing support to people who are experiencing violence.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance, right? Between leveraging the power of technology, but also making sure it's used responsibly, ethically, always with that human-centered approach.
Yeah, and I think this conversation has been so eye-opening in that way, because it's amazing to see how UN Women is really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI, and not just in terms of the technology itself, but in terms of its potential to drive real social change.
And it's not just about what UN Women is doing, right? I think it shines a light on how important it is for everyone who's working in this field to approach AI development with this focus on inclusivity.
Right. And from the ground up.
From day one.
Yeah, because ultimately technology is a reflection of us.
100%.
Of our values, our priorities.
It's a mirror.
And our aspirations for the future.
Exactly. And if we want that future to be one where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, then we need to make sure that everyone has a voice in shaping those technologies.
Yeah, I love
that are shaping our world.
So we've talked about UN Women's efforts to, promote women in tech, combat online violence, provide support to victims of domestic violence. All incredibly important initiatives.
Hugely important.
But I'm curious to dig a little deeper into, the potential challenges and opportunities of using AI to address these really complex social issues.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that, this is a field that's constantly evolving. We're learning as we go.
Right.
And there's a lot we still don't know about, the long-term implications of AI, both positive and negative.
Right. It's like we're at the very beginning of this.
We're in the early stages
of this journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need to be really thoughtful about how we proceed.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest challenges, even when our intentions are good, is that there's always this risk that these technologies could inadvertently end up perpetuating the very biases that we're trying to eliminate.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So can you give me an example? How could that happen?
Yeah, sure. So let's say, for example, we're developing an AI system to identify women who would benefit from microloans, right? To help them start their own businesses.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a fantastic
It's
idea.
great on the surface, right?
Yeah, empowering women economically is essential.
Absolutely. But let's say the data we use to train that AI system is based on historical lending practices that have traditionally disadvantaged women, for example, by favoring certain industries or by requiring collateral that women are less likely to possess.
Right.
Then the AI system, even though it's, designed with the best of intentions, could end up just replicating those same biases.
So even if the algorithm itself isn't biased, the data it's learning from
The data is key.
could be skewed
Exactly.
and then have these unintended consequences.
Exactly. And that's why UN Women stresses that data collection and analysis has to be done through this gender lens, right? We have to make sure the data itself is actually representative
Yeah.
of the real lived experiences of women and girls.
So it's like that old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
100%.
If the data's flawed, the AI is going to be flawed.
It doesn't matter how fancy the algorithms are. If you're feeding it bad data,
It's still going
you're
to
going to get bad results.
give you bad results.
Exactly.
So it's not enough to just develop these AI solutions. We have to constantly be evaluating,
Yes.
getting feedback,
Absolutely.
making sure that we're staying on track.
It's an iterative process.
Yeah.
We have to constantly be learning, adapting, and refining what we're doing.
Much like the work of achieving gender equality itself.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination. It is. It really is a journey, and one that requires, constant vigilance, right? Because it's like we're navigating this totally new terrain, and we have to be really aware of the potential hazards along the way.
Right, because think about all the ways AI is already kind of embedded in our lives.
Yeah.
Right? We've got algorithms curating our social media, facial recognition software being used by law enforcement.
Oh, absolutely.
If those systems aren't being developed with this focus on inclusivity,
right.
the potential for things to go wrong is huge.
It's enormous, and that's precisely why I think the work that UN Women is doing is so important, right? Because they're not just focusing on developing these AI solutions themselves, but they're really advocating for a more ethical, a more responsible approach to AI development, like across the board.
Yeah.
So they're pushing for greater transparency,
Yeah.
accountability, and crucially, participation from marginalized communities in the development and deployment of these technologies.
So it's not enough to just, mean well.
Exactly.
You have to make sure that those good intentions are actually translated into concrete action safeguards.
Absolutely. It's about really embedding those values into the very the DNA of these technologies. And it's not just about, preventing harm, right?
Right.
It's about really harnessing this incredible power of AI to create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
It's about making sure that technology serves humanity,
Yes.
not the other way around.
100%. And that's something that I think, we all have a role to play in.
That's a great point. And we've been talking a lot about, UN Women and the work that they're doing, but what about our listeners? What can they do to be more, I guess, informed and engaged in this whole space?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, first and foremost, stay informed, right? There are so many resources out there,
Right.
books, articles, podcasts like this one that can really help you understand the complexities of AI, its potential benefits, but also those risks that we've been talking about.
Right.
So educate yourself, engage in those critical conversations, and support organizations like UN Women, right? Groups that are really out there on the front lines championing ethical and responsible AI development.
Yeah.
And finally, and this might seem small, but it's not, be mindful of your own digital footprint. Think critically about the information that you're consuming, that you're sharing online, and be an advocate, right?
Yeah.
For a more inclusive and a more equitable digital world.
It's a good reminder that we're not just, passive consumers of technology, but we actually have a say in how it shapes our world.
We have agency, and I think that's a really empowering message.
It is empowering. And I got to say, this whole deep dive has really, it's opened my eyes to just the incredible potential of AI to advance gender equality, but also to the importance of proceeding with caution and intentionality.
I couldn't agree more. It's a tool, and like
Yeah.
any tool, it can be used for good or for ill, but ultimately the future of AI, it's not something that's preordained. It's something that we are actively shaping right now through the choices we make, the conversations we're having, and most importantly, the actions that we take.
That's a really powerful message to end on, I think, and I think it's a great reminder for all of us that the future of AI is not set in stone. It's in our hands.
It is. It really is.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into UN Women's incredible work using AI to advance gender equality.
It was a great conversation.
We explored, just a small glimpse of all the amazing work that's being done and some of the really critical questions we need to be asking as we navigate this rapidly evolving technological landscape.
It's an exciting time to be having these conversations.
It is. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this journey of discovery.
Yes, thank you.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that's shaping our world. But until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.
Onwards and upwards.